kicking it off, Chris, what do you got for us for this first one?
Yeah, so we have some champagne to start with, which is not something you would associate with beef, but it's made in a very rich, kind of unctuous style. So we're looking at a lot of what we call autolytic character, which is all like the brioche, toasted nut type thing, but it's actually made all from Chardonnay.
Cool.
But Chardonnay is a relatively neutral variety that takes well to winemaking or to show the place. So the idea here is you have the bubbles, CO2, that's going to refresh your palate. You have acid, that's also going to refresh your palate, but the wine is weighty enough to stand up to the fatty richness of the Wagyu Sauvignon.
Love
Nice,
it. We did a wine dinner and we did A5. And
Yeah.
It was first. And it kind of blew people's minds that we were steering towards a white. It was I think it might have been a sparkling too.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's the marriage. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Super rich, super minerally.
Yeah.
Come at each other.
And you
work
want to do that with
together.
that kind of style, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't want that overly, like we talked about Cabernet, like going with an overly heavy style with another really fatty piece of meat, rich piece of meat, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think of like palate impact, right? So when you take a bite of Wagyu, it's like, whoa, right? It's
Yeah.
like getting punched in the face in the best possible way,
Best.
right?
Absolutely.
So when you
The best.
when you have that happening, you're like, you almost need a little reprieve,
Yeah.
because it builds and builds and builds. And if you were to just keep doing that without refreshing your palate, you'd be full in especially with A5 or
Yeah.
something like that, you'd be full in 3 bites,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
But when you add wine to the mix to refresh the palate, then you can kind of meter it out, and you can actually eat more than you'd expect, and you don't get overwhelmed. And it also doesn't lose its specialness because you're hitting the reset button every time you take some wine. So it's not just beef on beef on beef where you're kind of losing that impact. It's like beef, whoa, wine, whoa,
Clean
and
it
it's
out,
reset,
start over.
and then beef again. Yeah, exactly. So
Nice.
that's the idea behind sparkling wine, with its bubbles, with its acid, all that kind of good stuff.